Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, and today we are going to be talking about train crossings for your Lego city layouts. And while I do have a pretty solid train crossing here, I really like this design. It only goes over straight tracks, and so while my city doesn't require a train crossing going over curved tracks, I wanted to see if I could make one today, and specifically make it look good. Because as these crossings are, it's pretty easy to make them look good. You just go straight across and it's all connected to the Lego grid with the studs. So it all works out pretty evenly, and you can even double it up if you're making a double wide road as well. But with the curved tracks, all of the math doesn't work out so nicely as that. So that's what today's video is for. I'm going to see if we can come up with a design of curved train crossing. All right, so first things first, what you're gonna need is a base. And so you can either use a full base plate or a half base plate. It doesn't really matter. And the other pretty important thing, which you kind of need for a train crossing, is track. So here is a bunch of straight track right here, and then also some curved track as well. Now, my thought process with this is that actually for the purposes of the video here, we will have a straight track running along the back right about here, and then we can have a curved track right about here as well. So, and then we could also have a switch track on the other base plate to the side, which is where this comes into play. So we can open this up and then we can kind of connect everything together. But for the purposes of the video, we are going to be focusing on this half base plate right here. So first things first, we need to get this track ballasted. And then once it is ballasted, we should be good to go ahead and start figuring out how cars are going to cross it. All right, and so for those of you that are wondering how to ballast train track before we even get into the train crossing itself, for the straight track, it is very straightforward. All you do is just put 2 by plate on either side, and you just put 2 layers of it like you can see here, and then obviously you would fill in the gaps as necessary. And then you literally just stick this down onto the base plate. And even with the gaps in this that I haven't completed yet, you can already see just how much better this looks here. So this is the standard track, and this is the partial ballast right here. And then that would just clip into the track, and then that, or the base plate, and that is pretty much that. Now, the curved track is a little bit more complicated. So this is the standard curved track that Lego produces, and this is the ballast track right here. Basically, what this is a whole bunch of plate interlocking underneath, and I will kind of take this apart to show you guys here. Basically, what this is this assembly just 4 times over. And so you'll see it's a 2x4, and then a 2x4 staggered, and then you put a 1x4 on top. Then you attach a 1x2 plate and a 1x1 tile on the top, and then that is pretty much that. And so you pretty much just do that 4 times over, and then you attach it to the train track like so. And then so this just comes in like that there. And then I use clips just because that's what I have a lot of, and it also helps support the tiles just a little bit more. And then you just place your 1x4 tile on that there. And then that is pretty much that for the standard ballast track. And then on the outside, you would put 2x2 plates and then 1x2s on the edges. And then on the inside, you alternate between 2x2s and then the 1x2 plate with the rail. And that gets this really seamless look. Now, the problem with this is when you're trying to do a train crossing, since these tiles are every other, that's why it looks good. But when you go in and try and fill in the gaps and then try and make everything the same level, that's when it becomes a problem. That's when it doesn't start to look so good. So that's what today's video is for. We are going to try and figure out a solution for that. So let me tack this down to the base plate and we can get started. All right, so I have here the test subject attached to the base plate here. And so you'll see the straight track on the left here and the curve on the right. And I put a layer of tiles underneath as well, pretty haphazardly, but it does get the job done, and it does just sit underneath the connection points. And so whenever I go to press on it, it's not going to break some of the pieces off, because as nice as this ballast track is, and as nice as it looks, it is a little bit fragile if you're not careful with it. So that is why it is like that. And so now that that is all ready to go, we can actually start to put tiles on it. Now, there's a couple ways that we could do this. What I could do is I could just take a bunch of plate and then kind of just continue it along like that. And then we could keep going until we essentially can't anymore. So I guess that's what we're going to try first. And then worst case, if that doesn't work out, we are going to try a different solution. And so I'm not looking at other people's stuff online. I'm not seeing how other people do it. I'm just throwing a bunch of pieces at this to see what works and what doesn't. So without me talking too much, we're going to go ahead and we are going to try it out. All right, so I'm going ahead and I am starting to place some of the stuff down. And for the purposes of the video, I think we're going to make the crossing 12 studs wide as opposed to the full 16, because then I would need to add in the switch track and all of that. So we're just going to make it 12 studs wide, see if it's possible, and then we will go from there. But the first problem that I'm running into actually is right here. I wanted to add this piece right about here, but the edge of this is colliding with the stud on one of the pieces from the ballast. So we are just going to go in and replace this with a modified 2x2 plate. And so we're going to take this modified 2x2 plate right here and just put that in, and then take this 1x1 plate that was on the other 2x2, and then we could just put that like that. And then just put that down here. And then we should be able to just put this down. Now, I'm using these white studs here just to kind of get a very basic idea of what this would look like. Obviously, this would be better suited for a little bit more structure underneath here instead of just a bunch of studs being stacked up. However, if you kind of just come like this now, you can see that this is trying to minimize the gap as much as possible. And then so this could be a 2x3 right here, and then we could add another wedge plate right up top. So I think we're off to a decent start, and then that is pretty much that. I could raise everything up by 1, but then you would still have the same problems with the actual track itself as opposed to the ballast. But with the ballast, you can actually remove some pieces and then swap them out for tiles. So that is why I'm doing it like this. We can also try it up 1 plate higher later in the video, but I just want to see if this is possible first. All right, so this is what I was able to get. This is how close I was able to get with all the gaps and things. And the little gap here, you could just put a 1x2 brick in, or you could put a 1x2 plate on top of some studs. It doesn't really matter, but that is what it's pretty much looking like. So it's just a 1x4 plate, 2x4, 2x4, and then a wedge plate, 2x3, the 1x2, this, that, and then the 2x14 right there. And so that is pretty much that. Hopefully this turns out good enough that you guys can use this as a tutorial. But this is kind of what we're looking at right now. This is sticking out simply because this is how I'm connecting the curved track to the base plate. So that's what it looks like from this side here. And you can see that it looks pretty good. It's all level, and I think that looks pretty decent. Now, the problem here is, like I had just talked about, it is too short. So it needs to get raised up by 1 plate, which is not going to be a problem, except for maybe this section right here. But that will hopefully not cause too many problems. So let's try and fix that really quick. All right, so a number of things have changed since that last clip, and you'll notice that the plates are now 1 higher, so that's good, and then the tiles will sit on top and be flush with the rails, so that is good. But you'll notice a bunch of extra pieces on the side here, and that half modified plate that I had just talked about, I took it out. I took the whole section of ballast out on this side because I needed space for the supports for this. And so pretty much what I replaced them with was, instead of 2x2s, is 1x2s. And then where the rails used to be, I just took them out entirely. I did get the opportunity to replace one of the 1x2 plates with a rail. So then that kind of helps cover that gap just a little bit. But other than that, that is pretty much it. And then so I could just rip this out for you, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. And then this would just sit like that. So that's pretty much it. And then I left the original rail plate on the edge of the ballast here because that seemed to still work. So that was good. And then so this just clips in like that there. And there you go. That is pretty much that. And then you can just go back and reconnect your plate and then wedge plate, and then that is pretty much it. Now, to cover this and to get this curved track at the same height as this, what you can do is you can go in and you can place 1x1 plates and studs on each of those available studs up there. Some of them you will be able to fit squares, fit the full plate, but for most of them, I don't think you'll be able to. You have to use studs. And then, so as you can see, round stud there, regular plate there, and then that is pretty much that. So then you can kind of just go through and fill that in, and then once you have all the studs up top here, then we can start to place tiles on it, and hopefully this will all look really good, and hopefully this will as well, because we still have to raise this up by 1 plate. All right, so this is what I have come up with so far. I spared you guys all of the other iterations that this has gone through, but this is probably the best that it's going to end up being with the least amount of studs possible. That was my main goal, was to keep it as smooth of a surface as possible. I only ended up using 1 wedge plate. I've seen people before use all different kinds of sizes and wedge plates, and then you have this weird line of studs going against a curved track, and I didn't like that, and I wanted to see if I could do it with only tiles. I was very close. This is the only 4 studs in the middle here, but I think this looks pretty good. I think this is looking pretty decent here, and coming around this way, you can see how that's shaping up. And I think this looks pretty good. There is not a whole lot to it. It's pretty much just trying and playing Tetris, essentially, and trying to figure out where everything fits. A lot of the tiles in here were had to be added in, like remove the studs and then add tiles in. And so that is pretty much that. I could have probably replaced that quarter round tile with another one of these just to fill in that gap a little bit better. But other than that, that is pretty much where I'm at with it. I'm pretty happy with it. This section I don't love. I tried using all different kinds of other pieces. I tried using this corner piece in here, but it wouldn't work. I tried it on both spots there. Unfortunately, that just didn't work. But that is pretty much where I'm at with it. That is pretty much that. And then so with that, now we can start to move on to this right here, which is its own beast, I guess. And so now with that being said, we're going to go ahead, we're going to raise this up by a plate, and then we're going to try and add tiles onto it to see if it can look any good. All right, so there is quite a lot to talk about here. And so pretty much what you can start to see is that it might actually look a little bit different. Not just this, but in general. Eagle-eyed viewers, right at the start of the video, will know that I messed up. I did not place these 2 tracks evenly away from each other. I was 1 stud short, so they were 1 stud too close to each other. So I fixed that, and then I added this row of 1x2 tiles in. So now this is the proper size in between each of the tracks. If you're ballasting them according to the pen lug system, and also if you want your track system to be modular, so that is where that is. So that's why this is like this. And then so pretty much the only change I made to the middle, other than those 1x2s, was I added in this curved tile in here. I don't have any in dark gray, but the curve allowed me to fill in a little bit more of that gap. And so I'm much happier with that now, because the triangle tile that was there before really didn't look that good. Now for the curve itself here, you'll notice that I went with kind of a pattern here. So it's a 2x2, a 1x2 corner, and then an angled corner, and then this cut tile here. And then the pattern pretty much just repeats all the way down. Now, I know I said I was going to keep it at the 12 studs wide, but for the purposes of the video, I feel like I could just easily make it the 16 studs wide here. And this is what the entire thing is going to look like. So I unboxed that switch track, and let me connect it up for you to show you how everything looks. And then pretty much the only difference that you have to make here, the only additions to it, on the switch track itself is a 1x2 plate, and then this cut tile, and then this stack of white studs here will hold this corner tile in. It's a pretty snug fit. However, I did just get it to work off camera here, so hopefully it does. Yep, there it goes. It went back in. And so there you go. That is pretty much that. And then this pattern would continue a little bit, and then that is pretty much the whole crossing here. So that is pretty much that. I'm actually very happy with this. This turned out way better than I had expected. And so if you guys share that same sentiment, drop a comment down below to let me know your thoughts on it. I would really appreciate the feedback on it. But that's going to wrap up today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys like this video and you want to see more stuff just like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe, as well as click the bell notifications so you don't miss any future uploads. If you guys have any feedback for me on this train crossing, and if there's anything that you would have done differently, or if you've made your own curved train crossing and you want to let me know how that went, make sure to drop a comment down below. I'd be very curious to hear what you guys have to say about it and also about your own designs. I would love to see those designs as well. So follow me on Instagram and send me pictures over there. That would be really, really cool. The Instagram handle name is just ChrisBricks02. It's the same as the YouTube. So again, if you're interested in following me over there and seeing more casual photo updates, make sure to follow over on Instagram so that you don't miss out on any of the cool stuff that I'm working on. But once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye for now.